So, the president of Zimbabwe sends a stern warning to the Western countries. And you know, Zimbabwe is a very historic and a very important country because it's one of the countries that shaped the history of independence of Africa. One of the countries that went in an active resistance with the British government. So, it's a very important country. So, today, let's try to uncover the compelling tale from Zimbabwe as the president of Zimbabwe sends a stern warning ahead of the 23rd of August election that is coming. So, we have to explore the challenges and complexities shaping the African gem called Zimbabwe. By the way, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our weekly updates.
We will not, as the people of Zimbabwe, we will not allow the Western countries to dictate to us. We don't dictate to them. This interference from outside is unacceptable. We as a sovereign state and a member of the United Nations, we have a sovereign right to run our elections uninterfered. Those countries who want to observe must restrict themselves to the role of observing our elections, not to interfere in that process. We will not accept it. After all, they have elections full of fault in their own places. The earlier they remove these sanctions, the earlier they will be comfortable in their own consciences. Because against these sanctions, we continue to grow. Our economy for the past 3 years has been growing above 5%, and the leading growing economy in the region, in spite of nefarious sanctions imposed on our economy in our country.
So, the president's stern message to the West cautions against interfering in the upcoming elections on the 23rd of August. But why has he shifted from the promise of re-engagement with the West to become a pro-East leader? You know, it's quite funny how we should understand how international relations shape the future and the elections. To understand this, we must look back at his rise to power and the coup that brought him to the presidency, the worst possible way to ascend. Remember Robert Mugabe, the bold Zimbabwean president who fiercely opposed the USA and the UK. Yes, the incumbent leader ousted him from office. But even after removing his mentor, he faces the challenges similar to his predecessor. Re-engagement with the West seems to have soured, and free and fair elections demands are on the spotlight. So as you know that Zimbabwe has endured pain and suffering, once known as the breadbasket and the jewel of Africa, only to face economic doldrums and wars and the devalued currency. So amidst economic sanctions and corrupt leaders, Zimbabwe grapples with the disputed political power struggles during every transition. Nelson Chamisa, the vibrant opposition leader, dreams of a modernized Zimbabwe with bullet trains and the reversal of labor roles, a vision that deserves an applause.
Already we've now more hectares under wheat than last year. And yet, with last year's winter wheat hectarage, with surplus. So we are going to have more surplus this year than last year.
What is clear and what is fact is that Zimbabwe is food insecure. And almost 49%, according to the World Bank latest report, 49% of the population are facing circumstances of extreme poverty. So any claim is only but politicking. And of course, parroting propaganda. You don't feed people with propaganda. The economy does not run on propaganda. It runs on the fuel of ideas, thought, facts. And the fact is that people are hungry and people need food on the table. Proved that indeed we are forced to reckon with. That's why ZANU-PF are worried. They are running helter-skelter. They are in sixes and sevens. They know that the writing is on the wall. We are stronger than ever before. In fact, if anything, it is ZANU-PF that is weak. It is ZANU-PF that is divided. It is ZANU-PF that is rudderless and leaderless. It is ZANU-PF that is in a deep quandary of leadership. That's why they've been losing elections, and that's why now they've had to resort to shadowy and spooky organizations like FARS to resuscitate their fortunes. That's why even in their latest elections, over 140 people have lost their elections, particularly in their parliamentary internal elections. It shows you that it's a party in turmoil. But not only...
So, we need to look at the road to recovery for Zimbabwe, but then it still hits the roadblock. The land reform program is at the center of what's happening in Zimbabwe, and the reason why Zimbabwe is grappling with all these economic sanctions and isolation from the World Economic Forum. We should really look at the land reform program. Nothing else is being talked about. The human rights violations are just a story for another day, but the main issue of Zimbabwe starts with the land, and the land only. The biggest question that I have is, which country in Africa has ever challenged the status quo of the erstwhile colonizers to take back its land? The guess is correct: Zimbabwe. You see, there was a mishandled land allocation that was questionable, and you saw the big wigs of ZANU-PF taking all the arable lands, leaving the normal people to not have anything. So at the end of the day, if the process of the land reform was not targeting the ones who would vote for the leaders, it becomes questionable about their loyalty to you sharing the loot alone. So corruption, sanctions, power struggle paved path ahead of Zimbabwe's August 23rd challenge. Only the citizens hold the key to their destiny, free from interference. And it's so important to understand that this whole issue of foreign interference is real. It's not a lie. Sanctions are real. It's not a lie. I see a lot of people that try to discredit the fact that the sanctions are real. It's true. But also corruption is real in Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwean question is that of mishandled political power and that of an economy that is run by greedy and selfish leaders. So what's happening now in Zimbabwe is that leaders are afraid of being seen with their works. By their works, the Bible says, you shall know them. So this is the message that we should have for Zimbabwe. By your works, you should show us that you are an electable leader, not by accusations and not by hiding behind the Western countries. It's your works that will show you if you are electable for the next term. But if you found this tale intriguing, show some love by hitting that subscribe button and leaving your thoughts in the comments below. Let's spread the word and reach more people, and see you in the next captivating adventure in the tales from the motherland. Catch ya.